Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from one_ranger_387. AITA for thinking my 29M GF 28F is change-averse and affecting our relationship. My girlfriend and I have been dating for 3 years. I need to preface this by saying I have ADHD. I have a lot of the usual ADHD issues: being late, poor emotional regulation, strong sense of rejection sensitivity. Now, as our relationship evolved, I have noticed that I actually listen to my girlfriend and make changes so that the ADHD doesn't get in the way and doesn't upset her. I make more conscious efforts to be on time, and I take my meds to make sure I'm emotionally regulated when I'm with her. We're also from 2 different cultures. She is American, and I am Indian. I have put in significant effort to understand her interests and hobbies and cultural references. Of course, this also helps me understand American culture better as I live in America, so the reverse might not be as appealing for her. As time went on, I've actually ended up liking her hobbies so much I do them by myself. Like I bake and do embroidery, even when I'm just hanging out by myself. Also, we live apart, and I am the one who is always commuting to her place. She has a dog, and my building doesn't allow dogs. This has certain emotional, logistical, and financial costs associated with it. Like, I need to Uber to hers all the time. I don't have time sometimes to grocery shop and cook, so I'm forced to buy food outside. Now, my issue is I feel I am the one who's always having to put an effort creating a version of myself that my girlfriend likes. For example, I have told her multiple times that I enjoy doing gym physical activities with her and like it when she takes an interest in my culture. But she doesn't really do these things. I'm also significantly fitter than her. She's not overweight, but also not at all toned, and works from home and sometimes doesn't leave her house for days, besides walking the dog. On the other hand, I run marathons and look very conventionally attractive. The few times we did go on a run, I found it very hot, and we had amazing right after. So, when I say that I'm losing my attraction for her, it's not just purely physical, but rather the idea of seeing someone just sitting in their sweatpants all day working on the computer is not very appealing. I think this is one of the reasons our life has taken a nosedive in the last 12 months. I've hinted at why this might be, and her suggestion is that I should take ED pills. I already take medication for my ADHD, and the thought of taking annoys me. Like, why can't she make a change that would reinvigorate our life? She is also very weird about money and effort. She keeps tabs a lot on who paid last, and makes sure she's not getting shortchanged. When she does something, she also records that as a major effort, and makes sure to mention that. I don't do these things because I think it's exhausting, and reduces relationships to a form of debt exchange. Like, sure, there needs to be equal effort, but I feel she only looks at the efforts she makes and expects reciprocity in the exact same way, and turns a blind eye towards the things I do for her. Is this a cultural, or a gender, or social thing? I think a lot of these problems are because she is extremely change-averse. It's really hard to get her to see different perspectives apart from the ones she's set with. She goes to therapy, but I'm convinced that her therapist is the world's worst therapist. Her issues have not abated over 3 years, and her therapist is against medication to improve mental health. I feel all the changes for the better and emotional labor go primarily only one way in this relationship. I'm sure she doesn't see it this way, which is part of the reason I'm here. I want to better understand how I can help by A, girlfriend be less change-averse. B, think about this situation differently for myself. I feel if my girlfriend is this change-averse, then a cross-cultural relationship where we have different values won't work out. My perspective on relationships is it is something you actively wake up and work on and listen to your partner's needs and wants, but hers is a more romantic ideal of something that just happens, and I feel she is increasingly unhappy and thinks to some extent that I am what happened to her LOL. AITA for expecting that my GF needs to be less rigid and put in efforts for me and our relationship within the context mentioned above. OP is not an AH for being concerned about his girlfriend's efforts in their relationship. In this case, OP's girlfriend is an AH for not putting any efforts in the relationship. The relationship doesn't seem to be working in the long term. As for scores, I would rate OP's girlfriend 2.5. and OP0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from XX Kokok AITA for sending a screenshot of a paragraph he sent to me, confessing his feelings to his ex out of jealousy. I, F16, liked a guy in high school. When I first saw him, I told my friends he looked like a cartoon character and was updatable because he was dating one of my pretty friends, Rory, at that time. However, when the new year started, we were in the same class. He sat beside my best friend and was friendly and chatty, so I thought he had a crush on her. On his birthday, when I wished him saying, HBD hope, you get your Rory just because IDK, it was the first time I ever talked to him, and he started asking questions about my ex because we were all in the same class, and my ex was his best friend in kindergarten. He said whatever, and a few days later, he texted, so you don't text first? Eventually, we became best friends, and I started liking him. He had already broken up with his girlfriend Rory, and I even helped him try to get back with her with all the best relationship advice earlier. So one day, I told him, and after 2 days, his ex Rory told a common friend of ours that I liked him. I thought the only way she could know is if he told her. I broke the friendship, saying I didn't want to be involved in that drama, and he said he didn't tell her anything but had met her. Prior to this argument, at the start of this friendship, I told him I could set him up with my best friend Sandy. After many months, we started talking again because he asked for some notes and started flirting. He confessed that he liked me too, and I agreed to confess face to face because I didn't want to say, I like you on chat. I had never moved on from him because he was my best friend, and he never judged me. But then came the cricket tournament. He said he missed me when we didn't text, and I was kind of rude to him because I was still not over Rory, who was still on his Snapchat and had contact with him. We didn't talk for a week, and I couldn't text because we had an argument. But when I turned up to practice for cricket, he was there with Sandy, laughing, and I felt jealousy as she had already tried stealing my boyfriend in the past. So on the second day of practice, he talked to me very rudely and even took Sandy for a ride on his scooter because she had cried. He consoled her by holding her hand and making her laugh. They took more than 15 minutes to reach a place 5 minutes away, and that day, he kept his hand on hers again. I was never the overprotective or over-jealous kind of person. Not that it's bad, I'm just kind of like my mom. So, I stopped talking to him, and when he texted for a get-together, he also said he wanted to clear stuff out with me. I replied, wouldn't your girl mind? And he said, what girl? He said my best friend wasn't his girlfriend. He didn't come to the get-together as he was very tired, and the next time we met, he didn't talk to me and left. I watched him like a puppy. My heart had already been broken when he took her hand to comfort her. I blocked him and cut all contacts, and he noticed within an hour. He texted my other friend, let's say Darla, that I needed to hear him out. I agreed and unblocked him. He sent me a whole paragraph, and I eventually agreed to meet him alone. I don't know why, but one night I just said, there's no point in clearing stuff out, and he replied, Kay, I cried that night. I'm so embarrassed to say this, but I texted him again to clear stuff out again. And he eventually agreed. The first time we agreed to meet, he couldn't show up. The second time I was busy. With all the emotions in me, I was like, God, I will meet this guy at any cost, even though I knew God was against it. He didn't show up, and thankfully I didn't reach the destination as he didn't pick up any of my calls. I blocked him again, and he texted me on WhatsApp, saying it was because a surprise text happened in his class, and his mom wouldn't let him leave. I cried that day again. We didn't meet up to clear things up and became kind of friends, I guess. He texted me that he missed me and started sending romantic reels or whatever, and wrote paragraphs. I replied, still doesn't change the past, and even said that you've given me a chance in the past. All I'm asking for is a last chance. I saw my self-respect that was already on the ground, crippled, and never texted him back. But one day, we were in the group chat, and Darla made a sticker of a bunch of girls, including Rory, and a guy in the center of them all, making fun of the guy because he looked gay. So he sent that sticker to his ex, Rory, and she started dissing us. Even though the sticker wasn't even about her, she said, how about I make a sticker of you and that guy, her ex, and write one-sided love, and then tell you that it wasn't even about you. This hurt my ego. I'm very self-aware. And I sent her a screenshot of a paragraph that he had sent to me, and even blurred most of it. I confronted him because I felt that he might have told something to her, but he denied. I felt like, and regretted sending that screenshot to her. He confronted me, and I apologized. When my birthday came, he wished me and said he couldn't write a paragraph because he hated getting his paragraphs leaked. I said, fair enough. A month later, we were seated next to each other, and I still hadn't moved on from him completely. On the last day, accepting all we had been through, I smiled and started being happy independent of what others did or what he did, like talk to Sandy. I gave him a smile and later texted him, I'm glad it ended in a good way. He replied, yeah. I wasn't entirely happy with his reply, but looking back, I always had a hopeless, melancholic feeling that lingered in my heart about the possibility of him and me. But that day, I didn't feel that. I feel I still miss him, but it's all right. I will eventually stop missing him, but I did truly love him. I hope that one day I entirely move on from him. Also, give me some advice if you can. P.S. I even vented out to AI about him and made AI make a list of all the red flags. OP is not an AH for moving out of a toxic relationship. OP's boyfriend is an AH for being prioritizing others over OP. OP's reaction is 100% justified. She did nothing wrong. OP has the right to protect her emotional well-being. So moving on is the best option. As for scores, I would rate OP's boyfriend 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from mental_gymnast_. AITA for ghosting a friend for feeding into a psychotic episode. Me and Ron got into a bit of an argument about me sleeping over at Jade's house after we had been drinking. Me and Jade went to the bar together, and Ron showed up part of the way through the night and left about 20 minutes later. He tried to come pick me up, but I sent him home. When I got back into Jade's house, we ended up talking about the situation a fair bit, and that's when the episode started. I started to think that Ron hated me, and that he was angry that I was friends with Jade. I talked about this with Jade because we always talked about everything. I feel like it was pretty obvious that I was in a delusional episode, because I always start talking fast, zoning out, looping back to the same topic, and getting overly fidgety, and this definitely wasn't an exception. Jade always could tell when I was getting delusional within seconds of the episode starting, but this time, instead of talking me down, they started to feed into it. They told me that they saw him watching us in the bar, hiding in the far side of the bar, and that he only came over to talk to us after Jade spotted him, which immediately flung me into full-blown paranoia. I started getting false memories of him, and thinking that he was violent and cruel, and Jade only backed this up saying, I've known this for a while now, but I didn't want to tell you because you wouldn't have believed me. They told me that they were pointing things out over time, trying to get me to realize what was happening, and that they were glad I was so easy to manipulate, or they wouldn't have ever convinced me. The more we talked about it, the worse it got. They started saying that Ron was cruel to me whenever I spent time with them and my family, and I ate it up and started creating memories of this happening. I became more and more convinced that he was trying to isolate me, and as the night went on, I started to think that he was actively stalking me and that he was planning on killing me. I would get scared at every noise and ask Jade to help me check the house to make sure he didn't break in, and barred the bedroom door. We even started saying things like, wow, we must be tired. This is crazy. We're delusional. And wrote everything down on a piece of paper because I thought he had my phone bugged. The next few days were only worse as I started to think that everywhere he had been was bugged. My room, my car, everything. I spent a lot more time with Jade because I was scared. But the more time we spent together, the worse the delusion got. It got to the point where I started telling people that I was in danger and that if I disappeared, it was Ron. I said this to my father, who thankfully is used to my episodes, 4 friends, one of which was also Ron's friend, and Jade's family. I still spent some time with Ron, but I was terrified of him. I was trying to make sure he didn't think that I knew about what was supposedly happening. Me and Jade spent hours planning escape plans. They even tried to convince me to cheat on Ron. This was towards the week mark of the episode, so it was starting to wear off, and I finally started to regain my grasp on reality. I slowly stopped talking about it, and spent more time with Ron and was less scared of him. But in total, this episode lasted over 2 weeks. I ended up telling Ron about what happened, and he was furious at Jade. He also knows about the fact that I have episodes, but he was pissed at Jade for making it worse. I didn't want to stop being friends with Jade, but over time I started to realize that I couldn't trust someone that would feed into my delusions. I slowly stopped talking to Jade until I finally just blocked them, and I thought it was over. I still hate myself for believing all that, and I wish I never told anyone about the delusion, but thankfully, nothing ever came of it. The friend of Ron's I talked about it, even cut off Jade before I did, and still talks to both me and him, but I still feel horrible because it could have been a lot worse than it was. This was months ago now, and I wasn't going to post about it, but Jade has now started trying to contact me through our mutual friends, as well as posting about me on their social media, saying things like how they want to cut that head off, calling me a and a cunt, and that I need to unblock them and explain why I ghosted them. I never explained this to them, but I feel like it's pretty obvious. Our friends seem to be taking Jade's side, but I'm scared to tell people about what happened because 1, I don't really want everyone knowing how bad my psychosis gets, and 2, I really don't want to provoke Jade. I've considered the possibility that maybe Jade believed this as well, and we just happened to both have an episode at the same time, but they have never had a delusion as severe as that as far as I know, and it also seemed extremely intentional in retrospect. Them basically bragging about the fact that they were manipulating me for months into noticing what was happening, and continuously feeding into my worst paranoias, seem pretty intentional to me, but apparently that's not how everyone sees it. I understand that my mental illnesses are my responsibility, but I personally feel like actively feeding into someone's delusions is over the line. Even though everything ended up okay, I feel like I can't trust anyone anymore, especially not when I'm in an episode. So, am I the for ghosting my best friend without an explanation after this? Edit. For added context, I have been in therapy for 7 years and have tried a variety of antipsychotic medications. I just haven't found one that works for me. And yes, I do have false memories, but typically they don't last very long in these contexts and entirely disappear after they're acted on. OP is not an AH for cutting off contact with her friend Jade. OP's friend is an AH for being harassing OP despite knowing OP's medical condition. OP did nothing wrong by ghosting her friend. She did this to protect her mental peace. So, I would rate the OP's friend 1.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Tissaburner 4. AITA for cutting off my cousin because of her boyfriend. My cousin Meg, 23F, and I, 26F, have been inseparable since childhood. She never had close guy friends, so all the guys she met were my friends, and thus my age. She got into a relationship with my friend Charlie when she was 20, and it ended on a very bad note. I completely cut it off with Charlie for her sake, even though both parties were at fault, because to me, Meg was way more important. About a year ago, she started dating my other friend Ash. Now, at first, I had thought Ash was a nice guy, which is why I was happy for Meg. But over time, I started realizing he was a terrible opportunist and manipulator. Ash got his first job because of my recommendation, and many other career-related opportunities through me. I am very gullible and easy to emotionally manipulate, which he took advantage of. Meanwhile, he had been spreading a lot of about me to others. These people came up to me to tell me about all of this. I have even confronted Ash about these, but he apologized and made excuses about being in a bad place and stuff when he did all that. I never told Meg in detail about Ash's true colors because I could see how in love she was. And what little I told her, she chose to believe Ash. Soon, I started seeing signs of Ash manipulating Meg against me as well. A couple of months back, I broke up with someone I thought I would spend my life with. I expected support from Meg like I had supported her, but she was too obsessed with Ash. Then one day, I found out that Meg and Ash and another couple, our common friends, went on a trip together in which me and my ex were also supposed to go. Meg mistakenly revealed it in a group chat and then instantly deleted it all. I was pissed, not because they went without me, since unlike them, I am single, but rather because they thought they had to hide it from me. Still, I tried making light out of the situation by saying they don't need to hide it because I don't want to be a third wheel anyway, but rather, Meg and Ash started acting like I was butthurt and gaslighting them. Ash started posting indirect stories, targeting me like a teenager, and I got pissed. I had no desire to talk to Ash anymore. But I confronted Meg, telling her that I am hurt by this, and she just went off on me saying, if I have a problem with Ash, I should take it up with him. I told her Ash doesn't matter to me anymore, you do, because you are my blood, and I want to let you know what hurt me." She acted very nonchalant and terribly rude. I supported both of these people when they had nothing and no one. And I helped them solve relationship issues, starting from cheating accusations to meeting the family and all. And in return, I got nothing. Ash tried to sabotage my career behind my back, and Meg turned a blind eye because she was so much in love. I received no apology after that. I did not try contacting either of them. Even Meg put up a few indirect stories targeting me. I never validated anything with any response. It felt weird. I talked to Meg almost every day about everything, and now we haven't been in touch for a month. At first, I was very depressed, but now I don't really care about it much. But some family wedding is coming up, and I might have to see Meg there. I might completely avoid it because of this reason. I am only worried about our families noticing the tension between us because they have always seen us joined at the hips. But I am pretty sure if I revealed all the truth to our families, they would know I am not at fault here. But this might also cause a rift between our parents. So, did I do the right thing by cutting her off? Or am I just not seeing what I did wrong because I'm an a-hole? Edit 1. Meg didn't do anything wrong directly. It's just that I always picked her over everyone else, and I was selfish, stupid, to assume she would do the same. I cut off another really close friend because Meg did not like her, but she did act immature by putting up stories targeting me. Besides, I did not even go to her to vent about Ash. I just told her that she had hurt me by assuming I would get mad at her for going to the trip. My problem was hiding the trip, not going. In this conversation, I just mentioned that Ash has hurt me too. That's when she said to go to him. I never want to make her pick, which is why I cut it off. OP is not an AH for cutting ties with her cousin and her boyfriend. Ash and Meg are highly selfish and opportunists, and they don't care about OP. OP's decision to cut off ties with is very good for her mental peace and well-being. As for scores, I would rate OP's cousin and her BF 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. Let's now jump onto the next story from Never the Right Choice. AITA for not giving him a choice? I, 33F, am 33 weeks pregnant with my first boy and last child. This baby was planned. Our whole life was planned. Due to jealousy and spite and general nastiness, his 32MX, 32F, mother to his current youngest son pre-ours, basically gave him an ultimatum. If you stay in the relationship with her, me, and have this child, you can't have a relationship with our son, and you have to have a relationship, co-parenting/romantic, with me, X. This caused my son's father to have a mental breakdown and the end of our relationship when I was 28 weeks pregnant. As you can imagine, it was exceptionally difficult, and the stress did cause issues in my pregnancy. In August, she moved to a neighboring country to her hometown, despite having no support, and at the time, no job or house. After weeks of silence, my baby's father sat me down and began opening up about how she had been speaking to him, things she'd said, etc. And he admitted his fault in it all too. He explained how he felt he couldn't be something to everybody, and he did the only thing so he could be there for all his children, 4 including ours. That I could understand. We came to an agreement we would still raise our son together and be friends. A few awkward weeks later, he came to me and opened up some more, admitting the ultimatum had been issued and that she had tried to kiss him, and that she had in fact had/has a boyfriend for months prior to this, a fact I think despicable. She destroyed our family and has her own boyfriend. And on his last visit to see his son, she screamed and became hysterical when he attempted to defend me as I have done nothing wrong. Since my child's father has come clean and admitted everything that has happened, we have become closer in our friendship and got through a lot of stuff together. It's been nice. However, in the back of my mind, I am always worried. Worried that when our son comes, she will do something heinous to me and our child. Or she will enforce the ultimatum, and it will cause another breakdown. The only way I believe I can help is once our son is born. I ask his father to write our boy a letter, explaining how much he loves him. But he has to leave, and he goes and gives this woman and his other son what she wants. I can raise our boy, and I wouldn't think any less of him. But it's the only way I can see a way out for him. In all of this, I am putting aside my heartbreak and struggles. I am being empathetic to a woman who in one fell swoop preyed on a man's vulnerabilities and broke apart a family and essentially tainted a relationship between a man and his unborn son. A few points before people ask questions. No, he did not cheat on her with me. He left her because there was no communication, affection, or substance to their relationship. She was, in my opinion, coercively abusive and manipulative. He left and got with me. When he did leave, she prevented him from seeing their son for months. When she finally did allow him to see their son, it was on her terms and her terms alone. She allowed her new boyfriend to meet their son, but I have never met him, and nor would I have pushed to meet him or overstep in any capacity. He has said in no uncertain terms, had she never issued the ultimatum, we would still be together, having our baby and getting married, and that I am the person he loves. His choices, according to her, are as clarified. Be single and have all his children. Be with her and have his other son. She already put a wedge between him and his older two. That Wave spent a lot of time trying to repair, and that would be undone. Or be with me, have 3 of his 4 sons, and nothing to do with the current youngest. I am not a choice. I will not be considered a choice, and I have never and will never force him to choose. AITA, if I just remove myself and our son entirely? Update. I have mentioned removing myself and our son entirely from the equation, and his response was, "That's not something I want to think about right now. I'm trying to live day by day. That is more confirmation of what I need to do, but I still feel terrible taking that choice from him." OP is not an AH here for trying to protect her unborn child from ongoing emotional manipulation by her partner's ex-wife. OP's partner's ex-wife is an AH for trying to strain the relationship between OP and OP's husband. As for scores, I would rate OP's partner's X 3.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from Gold-Net-4632. I'm the bad one for not giving a gift according to the cost of the wedding. I was invited to a wedding, I confirmed my attendance, and they sent me the itinerary. When I checked it, I saw that I was only invited to the ceremony. I asked the bride, "Hey, so I'm only invited to the ceremony?" She said yes, that was correct, since the reception and catering were more intimate. She explained that the guests at the party were selective, because it was going to be in an amphitheater. I said, okay, that was fine. I was really excited to go to this wedding. It would be held in a little town that looked medieval, like an ancient Mediterranean village. My brother asked if I had already made the reservation, and I told him no, because the bride hadn't told me I needed to book it. The bride wrote to me, apologized, and sent me the link so I could make the reservation myself. There was less than a month left, and this place usually requires reservations 2 or 3 months in advance. I told my boyfriend, and he said if I didn't feel comfortable, I shouldn't go, but if I wanted to, he could go with me. We could rent a villa nearby, I'd attend the ceremony, then return with him, and do other activities. I told this to the bride, and she said she wanted everyone to stay in the same place because she didn't want any complications, and reminded me that my invitation was without a +1. I told her that what she was asking was unreasonable, because they hadn't blocked a spot for me when they made the reservations. Also, you're only inviting me to the ceremony. Not that it's not valuable, but your wedding is a destination wedding. I can't just go back the same day, so what am I supposed to do while everyone is at the wedding? She responded, okay, do whatever you want. I thought about it and wondered if it was worth going. The trip would be 5 hours, traffic permitting. The villa we found was inside the complex but far from the ceremony site, and since it was last minute, it was one of the most expensive. I swallowed my disrespect and decided not to go, without drama. I haven't been to many weddings, but I know that when you confirm, you're supposed to give a gift. I googled how much is reasonable, and in several places, it said that $50 is the minimum. That's what I deposited into the account on the invitation. The wedding passed. My brother told me the bride was upset with me for not going, and that it was rude after confirming. I told him I had deposited her gift. I told my brother I deposited $50, and he laughed. I think he thought I was being sarcastic or joking. His wife made a bigger drama out of it, or I don't know what she told her sister, because the bride wrote to me, even though she was supposed to be on her honeymoon, and told me I had offended her twice. First, for giving her only $50 when her wedding cost more than that, meaning the gift should have been higher, and I should have considered who she was marrying. And second, for not attending. I told her that with the treatment she gave me, I wasn't going to go, and that I only gave the $50 because I confirmed my attendance. Had I known I was only invited to the ceremony, I wouldn't have accepted to go. She said I was being very rude and classless, to which I responded that she wasn't showing much class by judging my gift. My brother told me that this also made him look bad in front of the family, and that he didn't want the groom to be upset with him, because he didn't want to ruin their friendship. He said that if I was going to be rude, I should have told him, and he would have given a gift in my name. I replied that I could see where his priorities were, and how he was putting other people's feelings above his sister's. I congratulated him on gaining a new family, told him I'd only see him at funerals, and blocked him. I think that makes me the bad one, and I don't think anyone will understand me. My boyfriend is on my side, but he says I'm taking my frustrations out on my brother, and it's not his fault. My brother was my favorite person in the world. OP is not an AH for not attending the wedding, given the treatment OP received from the bride. The bride is an AH for demanding gift from OP, and OP's brother is also an AH for prioritizing the bride over her sister. As for scores, I would rate the bride 2.5, and OP's brother 1.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing.